Imagine you are a farmer. You are standing in a field of rich, deep red dirt.
Right? The soil in this area is just, I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah, the sun is punishing, obviously, but it is absolute perfection for the crops.
Exactly.
And you've poured your sweat, your literal life energy into this specific patch of land for months.
You've weeded it.
Right, you've guarded it, you've nurtured it, and today, all that agony actually pays off. The harvest is absolutely massive.
Mountains of grain. I mean, everywhere you look, there is just success.
It is a moment of pure, undeniable triumph.
It really is. It's the ultimate payoff.
Exactly. And, common sense tells us what happens next. When the land is this fertile and your harvest is this massive, you should get rich, or at least comfortable.
That is the logical assumption, yeah. I mean, that is the foundational promise of agriculture, right? You grow the food, you build the wealth.
But the foundational promise is broken here. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a brilliant research paper.
It's from some incredible researchers, Shilpa Aggarwal, Eilin Francis, and Jonathan Robinson.
Yeah, and our mission today is to take you inside one of the most absurd, honestly heartbreaking economic traps on Earth.
We are taking you to the Busia district in Kenya.
Yep. And here we face a nightmare, a completely counterintuitive, logic-defying nightmare.
We call it the curse of the harvest.
The curse of the harvest. Because here is the brutal reality. Every single time these farmers pull a bumper crop from the earth, they do not get wealthier.
No, they get poorer.
They get poorer. Every massive harvest actually accelerates their bankruptcy.
And let's be very clear right up front. This is not about a drought.
Right.
This is not about a flood. This is not some story about a natural disaster wiping out a village.
The crop is perfectly healthy.
It is perfectly healthy. The poverty here is not an accident of nature.
So what is it?
It is a perfect invisible trap. It's a trap set by market forces, and crucially, it is a trap set by human nature.
Wow. And we are going to show you exactly how a simple $2.50 piece of plastic broke that trap wide open.
Yeah, by the end of this conversation, your entire understanding of wealth, of savings, and of willpower is just going to completely flip.
You're going to see why saving money, the thing we are all told is the responsible thing to do, is sometimes a terrible, destructive idea.
You'll see why building better, smoothly paved roads can actually lead to worse exploitation.
Wait, really? Better roads?
Oh, absolutely. Better roads for the people living at the end of them can be devastating.
That is wild. And you'll also understand why keeping food in your own house, safely under your own roof, can be the absolute most dangerous thing you can do for your family's basic survival.
It is a story of extreme contradictions.
I want to start by framing the sheer absurdity of the financial system these farmers are forced to navigate.
Okay, let's do it.
Because if I pitched this to you as a Wall Street simulation, you would tell me the game is broken.
Walk us through the simulation.
Imagine a stock market, but it's a completely rigged stock market.
Right.
Imagine a system where millions of people deliberately, knowingly log into their accounts and sell their shares at the exact lowest point of the entire year.
They willingly take the absolute worst price possible.
Yes, they cash out at the absolute bottom, and then they just wait.
They just sit on their hands for months.
They wait until the price hits the absolute highest, most punishing, terrifying peak of the year.
And then what do?
Then they buy. They buy back the exact same shares they just sold for pennies.
But now they are paying a massive premium.
It is financial suicide. Sell low, buy high. It violates the first rule of money.
It really does. But that stock market, that exact dynamic, is the daily lived reality for millions of farmers in Busia.
Let's break down the mechanics of this price roller coaster.
Good idea.
Because the staple crop here is maize, corn, and the calendar dictates everything.
Right, so there is a major harvest in August. It's locally known as the long rains harvest. And because of the climate cycles, virtually everyone in the region harvests their maize at the exact same time.
So August hits. Millions of farmers suddenly have mountains of maize.
Exactly. The entire regional market is instantly flooded with grain.
And basic supply and demand takes over.
Yep. Because supply is effectively infinite on that specific day, the price crashes.
It hits rock bottom.
The grain is practically worthless.
But the human body doesn't care about market cycles.
No, it does not.
People have to eat in August, and they have to eat in October, and they have to eat in May.
Right. The new supply of grain stops on harvest day, but the demand for calories continues unabated every single day, all year round.
So the inevitable happens. The grain gets consumed.
The local silos empty out.
And the price starts to climb.
Yeah.
and climb
I climb.
and climb.
Until we hit June of the following year, right before the next big harvest comes in.
And the price of maize just skyrockets.
It reaches its absolute peak. They actually call this the hungry season.
The hungry season, that is so grim. Give us the historical numbers on this. Because when I first read the research, the sheer scale of the price swing made my jaw drop.
Yeah. The researchers looked at a decade of market data in the nearby city of Kisumu to establish a baseline.
Well, what did they find?
The historical average seasonal price jump, just a normal run-of-the-mill year, is 46%.
46%.
Yes.
If the S&P 500 swung reliably by 46% every single year, hedge funds would become trillionaires overnight.
Exactly. And remember, 46% is just the average.
It gets worse.
Oh, in a bad year, it gets catastrophic.
Yeah.
In the famine year of 2011, the price didn't jump 46%.
What did it jump?
It spiked by a jaw-dropping 269%.
269%.
Yeah.
Let's translate that into human terms. That means if a bowl of food costs you $1 today, it costs you almost $3.70 in a few months.
But your income hasn't changed.
Your income has probably dropped, right?
Exactly, because you have nothing left to sell. The pain here is acute, and it is relentless.
Farmers are forced to sell their grain for absolute pennies on the very day they harvest it.
They load it onto the middlemen's trucks. They watch it roll away.
And months later, when the hungry season arrives, they go back to the exact same market.
And they buy back what is essentially the exact same grain.
Grown in their own dirt.
Right, but now they pay a massive premium just to keep their children alive.
It is literally like taking out an invisible payday loan.
That's a great way to look at it.
If you sell a bag of grain for $10 in August and buy it back for $15 in June, you have effectively charged yourself a 50% interest rate just to eat your own food.
It is wealth extraction in its purest, most brutal form.
Now, this is the point in the story where a traditional economist usually throws their hands up.
Yeah, they usually say, well, the farmers just don't understand the market.
Right. They lack financial literacy. That's always the cliche.
But here is the massive slap in the face to that assumption.
Lay it on me.
The researchers actually conducted extensive baseline surveys before they even started their experiment.
Okay.
They sat down with these farmers and asked them to predict what the prices would do over the year.
So if I'm following, if the farmers were just ignorant, they would predict that the price stays flat all year.
Exactly, but they didn't. The survey showed that the farmers actually expected the prices to surge by 100%.
Wait, what?
They actually overestimated the average jump.
That is wild.
They are perfectly, acutely aware of the market dynamics. They know the trap is there. They see the roller coaster coming.
Okay, I have to stop you. I really have to push back on this.
Walk me through your logic.
Because if we establish that they actually know the math, then my brain just hits a brick wall.
It looks completely irrational from the outside, I know.
It looks like total madness. If they know the price is going to double,
Right.
if they know for a mathematical fact that simply holding on to the grain makes them rich, why on earth are they selling their food on day one?
It's the ultimate paradox.
Why not just hold on to it? I mean, if I know a stock is going to jump 46% in 8 months,
Yeah.
I don't sell it today, I lock it away.
Obviously.
So why don't they just lock the maize in a shed, sell it in June, make the profit, buy a tractor, poverty solved?
That is exactly what a textbook would tell you to do. Just hold the asset.
Right.
But reality is infinitely more complicated than the textbook.
Clearly.
There are invisible chains holding these farmers down. Chains that you and I, sitting in the modern Western world, don't even perceive.
So if it's not ignorance, what is the first chain?
Well, let's think about it.
If I know the price will double, geography has to be the issue.
Geography.
Yeah, they must just be too isolated. They live at the end of some terrible dirt path. They can't get to a buyer who pays a fair price in August, so they have to take whatever the one guy with a truck offers them.
That is a very reasonable deduction. You are assuming bad infrastructure is the culprit.
It has to be.
You would be wrong.
What?
This is where we hit our first massive counterintuitive realization. The infrastructure paradox. Better roads do not save them. In fact, better roads just mean the exploiters can reach them faster.
Paved roads lead to faster poverty. That makes zero sense.
Let's look at the comparative data.
Okay, hit me.
Let's look at Madagascar. In Madagascar, the road density is abysmal. It is 0.06 kilometers of road per square kilometer.
So it is practically wilderness.
You can barely move people, let alone goods. And the seasonal price gap there? A staggering 100%.
Wow. Okay, so extreme isolation creates extreme volatility because food simply cannot be moved from areas of surplus to areas of deficit.
Exactly. So isolation is bad. We all agree on that.
So we pave the roads, problem solved, prices stabilized.
Now look at Kenya. Kenya actually has decent road density.
Really?
It is 0.28 kilometers per square kilometer.
That's a massive difference from Madagascar.
It is. It's actually closer to the United States density, which is 0.67, than it is to Madagascar's 0.06.
Oh, wow.
So the roads in Kenya are there. The transportation costs are vastly lower. Moving goods is cheap and relatively easy.
So the market should balance out. The price gap should shrink to almost zero.
But the price gap in Kenya is still 40%.
Wait, 40%?
Yes. The convenience of traffic has not stabilized the prices at all.
Why? If the trucks can get in easily, why isn't there competition driving the price up for the farmer in August?
Because the roads don't belong to the farmer.
Oh.
The roads belong to the middlemen, the merchants.
I see where this is going.
When harvest hits, these merchants use the good roads to drive an entire fleet of trucks right into the heart of the village.
And because the farmers have no leverage,
the middlemen vacuum up the entire village's food supply at lightning speed.
they just swoop in.
Yep. They flash a little bit of cash when the farmer is desperate, and because the road is paved, they can haul 1,000 pounds of maize out of the district before the sun even goes down.
So the infrastructure just lubricates the extraction of wealth.
Precisely. It makes the sell low phase incredibly efficient for the buyer.
Okay, but this brings me right back to my original frustration.
I know.
Even if the merchant is standing in your driveway with a truck and a handful of cash, just say no.
It's not that simple.
Just tell them, no thanks, I'm keeping my corn.
And that brings us to the second, much heavier chain, the darkest part of this deep dive.
Okay, what is it?
We call it the kin tax.
The kin tax?
We have to talk about village sociology.
Okay, let's get into it.
In a tight-knit rural community, the concept of individual wealth is viewed very differently than it is in a modern city.
Right. If I live in an apartment building in New York and I have $10,000 in a savings account, my neighbor down the hall doesn't know.
And they certainly don't feel entitled to a cut of it.
Absolutely not.
But in a Kenyan village, saving food is not seen as financial prudence.
What is it seen as?
Saving food is treated almost like a moral failing. It is a sin against the community.
Because everyone else is hungry.
Yes. The cultural weight of communal sharing, something that, frankly, kept tribes alive for thousands of years during famines, has mutated.
Mutated into what?
Into a financial trap in the modern cash economy.
Let's put a human face on this. Imagine a farmer named David.
Okay,
David decides he's going to be the smart one. He harvests a massive pile of maize.
A huge pile.
And instead of selling it to the truck, he just piles it up in the corner of his living room. What actually happens to David?
David instantly becomes a target.
A target.
The data on this is chilling.
Yeah.
50% of the farmers surveyed bluntly admit a terrifying truth.
Which is?
If they have grain sitting at home, they are socially obligated to give it away.
50%. 1 in 2 farmers knows that if they have food, their door will be knocked on.
For free.
For free.
To begging relatives, to neighbors, to a cousin whose crop failed, to an uncle who needs to throw a feast.
It is forced sharing.
It is forced. And David has to look at his cousin, who is standing in his doorway, looking at a literal mountain of food in the corner of the room.
And the cousin says, "My children are hungry. You have a mountain of food. Give me some."
What is David going to do? Say no.
Why doesn't he say no? He grew it. It's his labor.
Because the fear of the village is infinitely stronger than the fear of the market.
Wow.
75% of these farmers believe, and honestly, they're probably right, that if they refuse to share their grain today, they will be socially excommunicated.
It will be cut off completely.
And in a place with no government safety net, no unemployment insurance, and no bankruptcy protection, your social network is your only life insurance policy.
That is a terrifying reality.
When David's family faces a crisis tomorrow, say, a medical emergency, or a bad harvest next year, he will receive zero help. The village will let him fall.
So storing grain at home invites relentless extortion?
Yes.
It is basically a bullseye painted on your front door. You cannot hide a mountain of maize in a tiny rural home.
Everyone sees it. Everyone knows exactly how much you have.
But you know what you can hide?
What?
Cash.
Exactly. And this is the great epiphany.
Oh, man. It's all clicking now.
Selling the grain on day one for absolute pennies is not an act of stupidity.
No.
It is not financial illiteracy.
It is a defense mechanism.
Yes, you sell the massive, highly visible, socially encumbered pile of grain.
You take a massive loss on the price.
But you get a few small paper bills in return.
And you fold those bills. You hide them in your pocket. You bury them under a floorboard.
You deliberately sacrifice 46% of your wealth just to make your wealth invisible to your own family.
That is profoundly tragic. The system forces them to destroy their own capital just to protect it.
It really does.
But the threat is not just outside the house, is it? The cousin knocking on the door isn't the only problem here.
No. The threat is also inside the house.
The threat is in the mirror.
The family self-control crisis.
Yes, let's talk about the biology of this.
We have to talk about the psychology of scarcity. Visible food creates an irresistible, primal temptation.
Especially when you're burning so many calories just living.
Even if you lock the door, even if you successfully hide from your cousins, you and your children still have to look at the food yourselves every single day.
39% of farmers in the survey admit something very vulnerable.
What's that?
They say that if bags of maize are just sitting in the corner of the room, the family will just eat more than they actually need.
They will binge.
They binge. 26% complain of a total lack of willpower.
They know they shouldn't eat it. They know they need to save it for June.
But they cannot stop themselves.
Think about the cognitive load of that.
It must be exhausting.
You are poor. You are stressed. The physical labor is agonizing. And the calories are right there.
The temptation is constant, minute by minute.
Resisting it drains your mental energy.
It's like putting a giant chocolate cake on the kitchen counter of someone who was fasting and telling them they have to stare at it for 8 months.
Eventually, you take a slice.
And the grim result of this temptation is tracked very clearly in the pawning data, right?
This is perhaps the most heartbreaking statistic in the entire research paper.
Walk us through the pawning cycle.
So in August, right after the harvest, everyone is flush with grain.
Right.
If an emergency happens, only 4% of people pawn their belongings.
Belongings like what?
Their radios, their bicycles, their farm tools, just to get by.
Okay, 4%. Yeah. That is the baseline of normal, everyday emergencies.
But fast forward, we reach the hungry month, June, right before the next harvest.
Okay.
The grain that was stored at home, it has been eaten, it has been given away to cousins, or it was sold for pennies back in August.
What happens to that 4% baseline?
That number explodes to 78%.
78%.
78% of the entire district is suddenly pawning their vital assets.
Selling off the literal tools they need to farm, just to buy back the food they sold for pennies months ago.
It is a complete death spiral.
The market punishes them for selling early. The village punishes them for saving. Their own biology punishes them for keeping food near their mouths.
It's a locked room where the walls are slowly closing in.
So how do you save people who are trapped in a system this perfectly designed to extract their wealth?
Well, you can't just build a shiny Western bank branch in a village like this and expect it to work.
No, traditional banking completely fails here. A bank teller doesn't solve the social realities of the kin tax.
A savings account doesn't stop your cousin from demanding a handout.
So the researchers stepped in, Aggarwal, Francis, and Robinson. But they didn't bring in Wall Street logic.
They did something much smarter and, honestly, much more humble.
What did they do?
They hijacked an existing tradition. They looked at what was already working in the culture.
They found a 5-year-old traditional village trust circle.
And they introduced a piece of plastic.
Let's talk about the sociology first.
Okay.
Because the foundation of this entire experiment rests on something called a local savings club.
Right. Some call them RSCAs, but local savings clubs is perfect.
These clubs aren't a new invention imposed by Western academics, are they?
Not at all. They have existed for years. They are deeply woven into the fabric of the community.
How big are they?
The researchers surveyed 132 of these clubs. The average club has 21 members, usually from the exact same neighborhood.
Yeah, how long have they been around?
They have been meeting together, managing small amounts of money together for almost 6 years on average.
So the trust is already there. It is a pre-existing social bond.
Exactly. The researchers looked at this and said, we don't need to create a new institution from scratch. We just need to upgrade the one they already have.
They decided to use this existing social web to do 2 things, right?
Yes. First, to socialize individual willpower, and second, to label that willpower.
We will definitely explain what labeling means in a minute because it is a fascinating piece of behavioral economics.
It really is.
But first, let's talk about the physical technology.
The hardware of the experiment.
The plastic bag.
It is called the Purdue Improved Crop Storage Bag, the PICS bag.
PICS bag.
And it costs exactly $2.50.
It sounds almost insultingly simple. It's just a bag.
Oh, but it is an absolute engineering marvel for this specific environment.
Let's unpack why traditional storage is such a nightmare so we can really appreciate the bag.
Good idea. Traditionally, farmers store maize in burlap sacks.
Gunny sacks made of woven fibers.
And what happens to a woven burlap sack sitting in a hot, humid African climate for 8 months?
It becomes an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Exactly. Insects, specifically weevils and borers, bore right through the loose woven fibers.
They get inside the grain and they start multiplying.
It's a total infestation. The data shows that with traditional burlap sacks, farmers lose about 30% of their total stored grain to pests.
30%. Gone. Just eaten by bugs.
Imagine putting money in a bank account and the bank tells you, oh, by the way, rats are going to eat a third of your cash this year.
I would riot. That is a massive invisible tax on their harvest.
And to fight it, the farmers are forced to buy toxic chemical preservatives.
They have to use chemicals.
They have to physically dust the food they are eventually going to feed their children with pesticide powder every 3 months.
That costs money. It takes grueling labor. And it must be incredibly dangerous to their health.
It is. Enter the PICS bag.
Okay, tell me about this magic bag.
It is a triple-layer, hermetically sealed container.
3 layers of heavy-duty, high-density polyethylene plastic.
You pour the freshly harvested grain in, you twist the top tight,
And you tie a knot.
and then the biological magic happens.
It is incredibly elegant.
Any insects that happen to already be inside the grain when you seal the bag,
Because there's always going to be some.
right, they start to breathe. They consume the ambient oxygen trapped inside the plastic.
And because the bag is completely hermetically sealed, no new oxygen gets in.
Within a few days, the oxygen levels plummet, the carbon dioxide levels spike,
And the insects literally suffocate to death.
the biological activity inside the bag stops completely.
No toxic chemicals needed.
0 pesticide dust. You just tie a knot.
That is brilliant.
And the researchers also provided a heavily subsidized, cheap wooden stand.
Why a stand?
This elevates the plastic bags off the dirt floor, protecting them from moisture and giving rodents a much harder time chewing through the bottom.
So the impact of this hardware, that 30% loss to pests,
It drops to 0.
total preservation of physical wealth.
Okay, so we have the sociological foundation, the trust circles.
We have the technological hardware, the suffocation bags.
How did the researchers actually design the experiment?
Right, because you can't just hand out bags and walk away. You have to prove what actually changes human behavior.
They set up a classic real-world experiment. They took those 132 trust circles and split them into 3 distinct groups.
Let's lay out the board. Group 1,
Group 1 was the collective grain storage intervention.
the big one.
The researchers told this group, take these sealed bags, put your maize in them, but, and this is the critical instruction, do not keep them in your own house.
Where do they go?
Take them down the road to the club treasurer's house. Store them collectively, together.
All the bags from all 21 members piled up in one person's house.
Centralized storage.
Wow. Okay, group 2.
Group 2 is the individual cash storage intervention. Let's call them the cash group.
For this group, they skipped the bags and the grain entirely.
Yes, they told these farmers, sell your grain if you want, but save cash. Bring cash to the weekly club meetings.
Put it in an individual lockbox account.
And specifically label that account for fertilizer.
They wanted to see if giving them a safe place to put money would solve the problem.
And finally, Group 3, the control group.
Because if Group 1 has communal bags and Group 2 has lockbox cash, you need a baseline.
A group that just keeps suffering the status quo to see if the interventions actually change anything at all.
Exactly. The control group was left entirely alone. No bags, no new accounts, just business as usual.
So we have the setup, we have the players.
Let's look at the results. And this is the point in the deep dive where my Western capitalist assumptions got completely shattered.
We really need to talk about the counterintuitive defeat of cash.
Because we are taught from birth that cash is king.
It's the ultimate goal, right?
Cash is perfectly liquid. Cash is flexible. You can use it for anything. Moving a society toward cash savings is supposed to be the holy grail of economic development.
But in this experiment, in this specific Kenyan environment, cash was entirely disastrously useless.
It failed completely. Let's look at the cash group, because at first glance, reading the data, it actually looked like a success, didn't it?
Yeah, the initial engagement metrics were quite high. 56% of the people in the cash group participated.
They opened the accounts, they showed up to the meetings, they made deposits,
They saved an average of about $9.60 per person.
which might not sound like a lot to us, but it is a highly meaningful amount of money in this context.
It is about 12% of what they normally spend on agricultural supplies for the entire year.
So they saved the money. They wrote the label for fertilizer on the account. They had the cash ready to deploy.
But then the calendar turned.
The planting season arrived.
It was time to actually withdraw that cash and invest in their farms, to buy the fertilizer, to break the cycle of poverty.
And what happened?
Nothing.
What do you mean, nothing?
I mean, zero significant improvement over the control group.
Wait, really?
The cash group did not buy more fertilizer. They did not invest more capital into their land. The intervention, statistically speaking, was a phantom.
Why? If they had the cash in the box, why didn't they use it for the farm?
Because cash is a trap. Cash is far too liquid.
It is too easy to spend.
Precisely. Let's go back to our hypothetical farmer, David.
Okay, David has $9 sitting in his lockbox.
But David doesn't live in a vacuum. He lives in a chaotic world. His child gets malaria and needs medicine.
The roof on his hut springs a leak during a storm.
His cousin comes begging for school fees.
The emergencies of daily life.
That cash is instantly diverted. It gets embezzled by survival.
Liquidity is a curse when your environment is constantly demanding money from you.
But there is a second, even more fundamental economic reason why cash failed, isn't there?
It goes back to the very nature of the agricultural market we discussed in the beginning.
Yes. The price roller coaster. Cash does not enjoy the seasonal price premium.
Think about the math. A $1 bill placed in a lockbox in August is exactly a $1 bill when you take it out in June.
It does not grow.
In fact, if there is any local inflation, its purchasing power actually shrinks.
But a bag of maize in August is worth 40% more by June.
The grain itself is a high-yield savings bond.
A cash savings account fundamentally cannot fight the extreme volatility of survival in Busia.
The farmers don't need a static currency.
They need an asset that appreciates in value to keep pace with the rising cost of living during the hungry season.
They need the grain. So, cash is dead. Long live grain.
Let's pivot to Group 1, the collective grain storage.
This is where the true miracle of the experiment happened.
Moving a plastic bag of corn down a dirt road to a neighbor's house completely rewired the psychology, the sociology, and the economy of the entire village.
The statistical jump we see here is massive. Unpack the numbers for us. How do we measure success here?
The researchers defined basic success as a farmer simply holding on to their grain for more than 1 month after the harvest.
Escaping that immediate, desperate day one sell-off.
Exactly. How did the baseline control group do?
In the control group, only 69% managed to hold some grain for a month.
But in the collective grain storage, the communal bags, there was a 23 percentage point leap.
23% more people suddenly had the ability to hold on to their wealth.
And they did not just shift the location of the storage.
They didn't just move existing grain from point A to point B.
They actually created new wealth out of thin air.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. How does moving a bag create wealth?
By changing the physical structure of the storage, they drastically changed the total volume of savings. In the collective grain clubs, the amount of maize stored at home in the living room dropped by 21 kilograms.
Okay, so they had less food sitting in their own houses. That makes sense. They moved it.
But the amount of maize stored collectively, locked up at the treasurer's house, that hit 51 kilograms per farmer.
Wait, you dropped 21 at home, but you add 51 at the treasurer's house.
Exactly. That is a net gain of 30 kilograms of saved wealth per family.
30 kilograms of maize that, in a normal year, would have been immediately eaten in a binge, given away to a cousin, or sold for pennies.
Was now safely locked away in a plastic bag.
That is wealth creation. Pure and simple. They plugged the leak in their own financial bucket.
And this leads to the ultimate economic victory for these farmers.
Which is?
Trading time for space.
What does that concept mean? Trading time for space.
By securing the physical space for the grain, the hermetically sealed bag sitting safely at the treasurer's house, they bought themselves time on the market clock.
They didn't have to panic sell to the guy with the truck on day one.
Precisely. In the control group, only 36% of farmers ended up selling grain later in the year. The rest had nothing left to sell.
But in the collective grain group,
The probability of a farmer selling grain skyrocketed to 73%.
they literally doubled their market participation,
They went from being victims of the market to active participants in it.
and they delayed their sales by an average of a full month.
They rode the roller coaster up, they waited until the supply dropped and the demand climbed.
They hit the market when the prices were higher.
And the payout was tangible. They secured a 6% price premium on average for every single bag they sold compared to the control group.
That is phenomenal. But we have to go back to the darkest part of the deep dive. The cultural chains. The kin tax.
The begging relative.
All right. How does a plastic bag sitting in a neighbor's house possibly beat the deeply ingrained, centuries-old social obligation of the village?
It's a great question.
How does a bag stop a cousin from demanding food?
It didn't stop the cousin from wanting food. It gave the farmer a psychological shield. It gave them an alibi.
A social excuse.
The data on this is fascinating and incredibly revealing about human nature.
What did they find?
62% of the farmers in the collective grain clubs reported that they gave significantly less grain to their relatives.
They successfully cut off the extortion. How? What changed in the interaction?
39% said the relatives simply stopped asking in the first place.
Why?
Because the house looked empty.
The visual trigger was gone. David's cousin walks in, looks at the corner of the room, and there's no mountain of maize. Out of sight, out of mind.
But here is the most powerful, most human statistic in the paper.
Tell me.
55% of the farmers admitted the absolute truth because the grain was physically locked away at the treasurer's house.
They finally had a socially acceptable excuse to look their relative in the eye and say, no.
I would love to help you, cousin. My heart bleeds for you. But the grain isn't here.
It's locked up at the treasurer's house. I don't have the key. I can't get it for you.
Exactly. It untangled the crushing debt of human favors.
It allowed them to prioritize their own family's survival, their own children's future, without becoming a social outcast in the village.
That is incredible. A $2 plastic bag solved a centuries-old sociological dilemma just by adding a tiny layer of physical friction.
But the psychological magic didn't stop with the external threats. It worked on the internal threats, too.
The self-control crisis, the binge eating.
Think about how the human brain categorizes assets.
A burlap sack of grain sitting in your own kitchen is categorized by the brain as dinner.
It is immediate, it is accessible, it is incredibly tempting.
But a plastic bag of grain locked securely at the treasurer's house down the road?
That is categorized entirely differently. That is tomorrow's capital.
This is the magic of mental accounting.
Yes, it is a masterclass in behavioral economics.
Just the physical act of moving the object out of the house and the ritual of writing it down in the club's ledger under a specific label, future reinvestment, changed how the farmer's brain perceived those calories.
Between 36 and 40% of the group members explicitly stated that this system successfully stopped their own families from binge eating their profits.
The temptation was completely neutralized. The physical distance combined with the mental label gave these desperate farmers superhuman self-control.
Okay, so the collective grain storage is a massive, cascading success.
They are saving more volume.
They are selling later in the season.
They are beating the kin tax.
They are beating their own biological temptation.
It is a profound victory. But we need to do a reality check on the ultimate goal.
We need to talk about the fertilizer.
Right, because the whole point of saving money, the whole point of beating the trap, is to eventually reinvest in the farm.
To buy better inputs, like fertilizer, so next year's harvest is even bigger.
The researchers knew this, so they ran a parallel secondary experiment using fertilizer coupons.
They wanted to uncover the true demand curve.
They wanted to answer a lingering, cynical question. Are these farmers just lazy? Do they just fundamentally not understand the value of modern fertilizer?
So they handed out discount coupons for agricultural supplies to see who would actually use them.
The coupons were randomized. Some farmers got a massive lottery ticket level 90% discount.
And others got a tiny, almost insulting 10% discount.
And what did the redemption data show?
When the discount was 90%, meaning the fertilizer was basically free, requiring almost zero out-of-pocket cash, The redemption rate was nearly 100%.
Everyone took it.
Everyone. They knew exactly what the fertilizer was, they knew how to apply it, and they desperately wanted it for their soil.
But when the discount dropped to just 10%, meaning the farmer still had to come up with 90% of the cash price,
The redemption rate crashed.
it plummeted instantly to just 10%.
It fell off an absolute cliff.
Yeah.
What does that mathematical drop-off actually tell us about their lives?
It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the farmers are not ignorant. They are not resistant to modern farming techniques.
They are desperately, chronically starved for liquidity.
Explain the cash flow timeline. Why is a 10% discount useless to them?
Because planting season happens months after the harvest. By the time they need to buy the fertilizer, they have already sold their grain, spent the pennies, and survived the hungry season.
Their pockets are completely empty.
A 10% discount on a bag of fertilizer still requires cash that they simply do not possess.
They are operating on such razor-thin margins that any microscopic rise in the upfront out-of-pocket cost slams the door right in their faces.
The poor do not lack ambition. They lack cash flow at the exact moment the agricultural cycle demands it.
And that is exactly what the collective grain storage provided.
By allowing them to hold their grain and sell it at a premium during the hungry season, it gave them a massive injection of liquidity right when the prices were highest.
It gave them the key to open that door and buy the fertilizer at full price.
Let's look at the final payoff. Let's look at the sheer return on investment for this entire intervention.
This is where the genius of bypassing the global banking system entirely becomes undeniable.
Let's break down the hard math for a typical 21-person savings club.
Let's start with the cost. The total input cost to get the system up and running. 4 PICS bags and 1 wooden stand.
That is $35 total for the entire club.
$35. That is less than $2 per person to permanently alter their economic destiny.
And the profit. The net gain from delaying those sales, hitting the market at a premium in June, even after you deduct the tiny cost of a wheelbarrow to transport the grain to the market.
Drum roll.
$98.
You put in $35, you get $98 out.
That is a 2.8 to 1 return. A 280% return on investment in a single season.
Show me a Wall Street hedge fund getting a 280% guaranteed return. It doesn't exist.
And it gets even better. Those PICS bags. They are incredibly durable. They are not single-use plastics.
They last for 3 full harvest seasons.
So for year 2 and year 3, the input cost drops to virtually zero.
The profit margin becomes almost pure alpha.
It is a stunning, undeniable victory for simple, highly targeted technology perfectly matched with local sociology.
But I have to play devil's advocate here.
I knew this was coming.
Okay.
Let's hear the critique.
Because I know the listeners who understand macroeconomics are thinking it right now. If this system is so brilliant, if the math is this undeniable,
What happens if this scales?
what happens if every single farmer in Kenya gets a plastic bag and joins a trust circle?
You are talking about market balancing, the phenomenon where an entire system shifts at once.
Exactly. Walk through the logic with me. If millions of farmers suddenly have bags and they all start hoarding their grain in August,
Then the supply of grain in August doesn't flood the market anymore.
which means the price in August won't crash to rock bottom.
Correct. The August price will stay relatively high and fair.
And if everyone waits to sell their grain in June,
Then the market, in June, is suddenly flooded with a massive supply of grain.
which means the price in June won't spike.
Exactly. The extreme price volatility of the roller coaster completely flattens out.
Wait, so the 46% profit margin, the entire financial incentive that makes this plastic bag system work, it vanishes completely.
It goes away entirely. The arbitrage opportunity is destroyed by its own success.
So the solution destroys itself. If we fix the problem for everyone, nobody makes the massive profit anymore. That feels like a tragic failure of the model.
No, you have to reframe your thinking. That is not a failure. That is the exact opposite of a failure.
How? How is losing the profit margin a victory?
Because extreme price volatility is a symptom of a sick economy. Price stability is the ultimate goal of a healthy market.
Oh, I see.
Think about it. The only reason these farmers are relying on a bag of corn as a high-yield investment vehicle is because the market is profoundly broken.
If the arbitrage disappears, if August prices are fair and June prices are stable, then farmers no longer have to play this terrifying high-stakes game of survival.
They won't need to hoard grain just to survive the winter.
Exactly. They will sell their grain at a fair, predictable price in August.
And what will they do with that fair, stable, immediate cash income.
They will put their capital into actual productive, higher yield investments.
They will buy better farming equipment.
They will send their kids to secondary school.
They will build small businesses.
The plastic bag destroys the arbitrage, which forces the regional market to mature.
The trap is completely dismantled.
That is an incredible perspective. A $2 micro-intervention forces a macroeconomic evolution.
And we know definitively that this intervention is incredibly sticky. It survives contact with reality.
Tell us about the long-term tracking data.
The researchers didn't just run the experiment, publish a paper, and vanish into the ivory tower.
They came back to Busia 2.5 years later to check on the clubs.
2.5 years. Without the researchers there to hold their hands, to run the meetings, to provide subsidies, did the system collapse?
90%.
90%.
90% of the savings clubs were still running this exact communal grain storage program entirely on their own, completely self-sustaining.
They kept the bags, they kept the ledgers, they maintained the trust.
Bottom up, native solutions survive. They survive and thrive in the exact places where top-down, foreign, multi-million-dollar banking interventions fail.
Because it respected the sociology. It didn't try to fight the village dynamics or lecture them on Western finance. It used their own dynamic to protect them.
It recognized that the barrier to wealth was not a lack of intelligence or a lack of ambition.
It was a lack of a physical and psychological barrier against temptation and extortion.
Wow, what a journey. Let's summarize how far we've come.
We started with a paradox. Rich soil making hardworking people incredibly poor.
We deduced that building better, faster roads didn't help. It just made the extraction of their wealth faster and more efficient for the middlemen.
We discovered that handing people cash savings accounts completely failed.
The cash just evaporated into the relentless emergencies of daily life.
It ultimately took a $2.50 plastic bag, a cheap wooden stand, and a deep, empathetic understanding of human psychology to actually break the cycle.
It stopped the forced sharing with cousins.
It stopped the binge eating in the kitchen.
It gave them the alibi and the power to finally say no.
This leaves us with a profound question about the modern world and human nature itself.
Let's hear it.
From medieval serfs trying to hide their grain from the feudal lord, to Kenyan farmers hiding corn from their cousins in plastic bags. The human war against hunger, against biological temptation, and against social pressure has never really changed.
The mechanics just look different.
That is the perfect way to look at this, and I want to turn this directly to you, the listener, right now.
Because it is incredibly easy to listen to this deep dive and think, wow, those poor farmers in Kenya, I'm glad I don't have those problems.
But you do. We all do.
Think about the modern tech economy you live in.
We are constantly told that friction is bad. Amazon gives you one-click ordering.
Apple puts your credit card in your phone, so you just have to glance at a screen to spend money.
Financial apps make it frictionless to move cash.
The tech companies are deliberately stripping away every possible structural barrier between your impulses and your money.
Exactly. And look at what saved the farmers in Busia. It wasn't the removal of friction.
It was the intentional addition of friction.
The PICS bag at the treasurer's house added physical and social friction to the act of eating or giving away food. Friction saved them.
Look around your own life. How many of your own financial struggles, your own failures to save, your own bad habits, how many of them are disguised as personal failures?
Are you beating yourself up for not having willpower, when what you actually need is a structural barrier?
Are you relying on cash when you need an appreciating asset?
What is the sell low, buy high trap in your own industry?
What is the invisible tax you are paying just to exist in your social circle?
And more importantly, if big tech is trying to remove your friction, how are you going to build it back?
What is your plastic bag?
What is the simple, cheap barrier you can build right now, today, to finally protect your future from the relentless demands of today?
Stop blaming yourself for broken systems. Build a better bag.
Keep questioning the obvious. See you on the next Deep Dive.